Alright, today let's look at sale of land part 2, and we will read out this note. Now, there is a difference between part payment and payment of deposits. When what was paid is deposit, it means that the contract or transaction has not been concluded. It's still at the transaction stage. At this stage, the vendor is entitled to resign and sell to another person. Deposit is sum paid at the contract stage of sale of land to show commitment on the part of the prospective purchaser. It also indicates that the transaction is not gratuitous. Where the purchaser pays deposits and then fails to pay the balance on the date agreed, the purchaser would be liable to lose the deposits, while the vendor is entitled to resign, being the innocent party in the absence of any contrary stipulations in the contract. Note that where deposit is paid, it shows that the transaction is still ongoing, not yet concluded. So, what we are trying to say here is that there are two, in sale of land, there are two kind of payments. If the purchaser does not make a complete payment for the land he wants to purchase, there are two kinds of payments he can make. He can make a deposit, he can make part payment. So what I've just read talks about deposits, and when a purchaser pays deposits, there is implication attached to it in law. So when a purchaser makes a deposit and agrees to pay the balance in a agreed date or in a specific date, now what happens is that the transaction is still ongoing. So the vendor can resign the contract, can still terminate the contract, and if at the agreed date the purchaser fails to pay the balance after making deposits, the purchaser may lose the deposit he has made already. So that is the two implications we want you to understand. If you make a deposit in purchase of land and agree to pay on certain dates, if you fail to pay on that date, you lose the deposit. And this payment of deposit simply means that the transaction is still ongoing, and at this stage, either of the parties can resign or terminate the contract. So that is what deposit payment is all about. So let's continue now. Now, on the other hand, parties could agree that the initial payment made by a prospective purchaser to be called a part payment. Where what was paid is a part payment, the general implication is that the transaction is over and concluded, and that the purchaser or assignee is only indebted to the assignor or vendor. Accordingly, if the purchaser fails to pay the balance on the agreed date, the purchaser will not lose the part payment, and the vendor is not entitled to resign from the contract on that basis. He is only entitled to enforce payment of the debt owed to him. Now, note that even where what was paid is part payment, the circumstances of the transactions might suggest that a contrary intention is implied. An open contract cannot be an end of discussion, neither can it suggest transaction concluded, regardless of what is written. So now, on the issue of part payment, this is simply means the opposite of deposit payment. In other words, in part payment, once a purchaser of land makes a part payment, it means that the transaction is concluded, and what is expected of the purchaser is to pay the balance of the transaction. Balance is owing the vendor on the agreed date. So if the purchaser fails to pay the balance on the agreed date, he does not lose title over the land. The land still belongs to him, and he does not lose the part payment he has made, unlike in deposit payment. So here the transaction is seen to have been concluded. So you understand the difference between deposit payments and part payments, and that is what we want to talk about now. So thank you.